My name is Margaret, and at 81, I've lived long enough to know what it's like to be forgotten. They look at me, gray hair, frail frame, eyes that have seen too many years, and they think my story's over. In the halls of Willow Grove Nursing Home, they whispered, "She's senile," as if my mind had crumbled like old paper. They were wrong. I wasn't fading, I was writing. And the day I published my book, I didn't just prove them wrong. I became #1 on Amazon. If you've ever felt underestimated, overlooked, or told your time has passed, this story is for you. Stick with me, and let's show the world what we're capable of. Hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs a spark of hope. Willow Grove Nursing Home wasn't where I pictured my final years. 2 years ago, a fall fractured my hip, and my children, Ellen in Chicago, Mark in Seattle, insisted I needed care. I packed light, but I brought my Underwood typewriter, a relic from my 20s when I dreamed of being a novelist. Back then, I wrote short stories of adventure and romance, my fingers dancing over the keys with a hunger for the world. But life, marriage to my late husband, Robert, raising 2 kids, teaching high school English, pushed those dreams into a dusty corner. The typewriter sat silent, a reminder of what might have been. Here, in this sterile room, I felt like a book no one bothered to open. The nurses were kind enough, but their smiles were practiced, their voices tinged with pity. "Margaret, you should rest," they'd say, as if rest was all I had left. I'd sit by the window, watching the oak tree outside bend in the wind, its leaves whispering secrets I couldn't quite hear. My hands, gnawed by arthritis, ached to write again, but doubt was a heavy weight. What was the point? Who would read the ramblings of an old woman? One evening, as the rain painted patterns on the glass, I pulled the typewriter closer. The keys felt cool under my fingers, familiar despite the years. I typed a single line. Eliza stood at the mountain's base, her heart pounding with a fire she thought had died. It was the start of something, a story, a rebellion, a refusal to be forgotten. I didn't know it then, but that line would change everything. The common room was Willow Grove's heart, but it beat with routine and resignation. Residents played cards, dozed, or stared at the TV, their lives reduced to waiting. I claimed a table near the window, where the light was better, and set up my typewriter. The clack of the keys drew stares, some curious, some annoyed. "What's she doing?" I heard Mrs. Thompson whisper to her friend, Ruth. "Thinks she's Hemingway or something." I ignored them, focusing on Eliza, my fictional heroine, who was beginning to feel more real than the people around me. Nurse Clara, a stern woman with a clipboard always in hand, was the worst. "Margaret, you're disturbing the others," she said one afternoon, her voice sharp. "This isn't a library." I looked up, my fingers pausing. "I'm writing a book," I said, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. She raised an eyebrow. "At your age, don't strain yourself." Later, I overheard her with an aide. "She's senile, typing nonsense all day." The word senile cut deep, a blade slicing through my resolve. I wanted to shout that my mind was alive, that my stories were alive, but I just kept typing, each word a small act of defiance. Sam was a volunteer, barely 20, with curly hair and a smile that didn't feel rehearsed. He appeared one evening, balancing a tray of lukewarm tea and stale cookies. "Mind if I sit?" he asked, nodding at my typewriter. I shrugged, expecting him to lose interest. Instead, he leaned in, reading over my shoulder. "Who's Eliza?" he asked. I hesitated, unused to anyone caring. "She's a woman in her 70s, I said. "She's climbing a mountain everyone says she can't." Sam's eyes lit up. "That's badass. What's her story?" His enthusiasm caught me off guard. I told him about Eliza, how she'd lost her husband, her confidence, but found a reason to climb. Sam listened, really listened, his questions pulling details from me I hadn't realized were there. "You should finish it," he said as he stood to leave. "The world needs stories like that." His words lingered, a spark in the fog of my doubt. For the first time in years, I felt seen not as a frail old woman, but as Margaret, the writer. That night, I couldn't write. Sam's encouragement had lit a fire, but doubt was a cold wind, snuffing it out. My hands ached, the arthritis worse, in the damp spring air. Each typo felt like a failure, a reminder that my body wasn't what it used to be. I thought of Robert, how he'd read my early stories, his eyes shining with pride. "You're a natural, Maggie," he'd say. But Robert was gone, and I was alone, an old woman in a nursing home, chasing a dream that felt foolish. I called Ellen, my daughter, hoping for reassurance. "Mom, are you sure about this?" she asked, her voice gentle but skeptical. "Writing's hard, and you're not young." Her words, meant to protect, stung worse than Nurse Clara's. I hung up, staring at the typewriter. Eliza's story was stuck half a chapter about her first climb, frozen mid-sentence. I wondered if I was stuck too, trapped by age and expectation. But then I remembered Sam's smile, his belief in me, and I typed one more line. Eliza stumbled, but the mountain was still there, waiting. Sam became my anchor. He'd visit after his college classes, bringing paper, pens, even a thermos of coffee that smelled like burnt caramel. "Read me what you've got," he'd say, and I'd share Eliza's latest chapter, her training, her fears, her small victories. Sam's feedback was honest but kind, pointing out where the story dragged or soared. "You've got something special here," he said one day. "Eliza is not just a character, she's you." His words pushed me to keep going. I wrote through the pain in my hands, through the late nights when the nursing home was silent except for the creak of pipes. Eliza's journey grew, her first climb, the blisters on her feet, the villagers who mocked her ambition. I poured my own fears into her, the fear of being too old, too weak, too late. Writing became a mirror, showing me a strength I'd forgotten. I wasn't just telling Eliza's story, I was rediscovering my own. Not everyone welcomed my writing. Nurse Clara's patience wore thin. "You're keeping everyone up with that racket," she snapped one evening, pointing at the typewriter. "This is a place for rest, not whatever this is." I met her gaze. "It's my work," I said. "It's what keeps me alive." She scoffed, but I saw a flicker of unease in her eyes. My defiance was new, unsettling. Other residents joined the whispers. Mr. Jenkins, who spent his days playing chess, muttered, "She's wasting her time." Ruth, usually kind, admitted, "I don't get it, Margaret, why bother?" Their doubt mirrored my own, but Sam's encouragement was louder. He slipped me a note one day. "Keep writing, you're not alone." I tucked it into my pocket, a talisman against the naysayers. Elisa faced skeptics too, and she kept climbing. So would I. We're at a turning point in Margaret's journey, where she faces resistance but keeps going. Have you ever pushed through doubt to chase a dream? Share your story in the comments, it might inspire someone else. Give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to Soul Stirring Stories for more tales of resilience. Sam's belief in me spread like ripples. He started bringing other residents to my table, curious about Eliza's story. Ruth, who'd been skeptical, stayed one day, her eyes softening as I read about Eliza's first summit attempt. "She's brave," Ruth said quietly. "Like you." I blushed, unused to praise. Soon, a small book club formed. Ruth, Mr. Jenkins, even quiet Mrs. Larson, who rarely spoke but loved stories. We'd read and discuss, their feedback sharpening my words. Mr. Jenkins suggested Eliza needed a friend on her climb. I added a young guide, inspired by Sam. Mrs. Larson shared a memory of her own poetry contest she'd won at 60, and I realized I wasn't the only one with buried dreams. The typewriter became our gathering point. Its clack, a heartbeat. For our little group, we weren't just residents anymore. We were a community, bound by stories and possibility. Sam suggested publishing my book. "Amazon makes it easy," he said, showing me his laptop. The idea terrified me. My story, out in the world. What if it failed? But Sam was relentless, teaching me to format the manuscript, design a cover, write a blurb. "This isn't just for you," he said. "It's for every person who's been told they're done." His words echoed Eliza's resolve, and I agreed. The process was grueling. My eyes strained against the screen's glare, my fingers fumbled on the keyboard, but Sam was patient, guiding me through each step. We titled the book Eliza's Climb, a nod to its heart. The night before publishing, I sat alone, the typewriter silent. I typed a dedication for Robert, who believed in me, and Sam, who reminded me. Then, with a trembling hand, I hit publish. Nurse Clara came to me that afternoon, her clipboard nowhere in sight. "Margaret, I was wrong," she said, her voice low. I'm sorry." I nodded, forgiving but not forgetting. "I just wanted to tell my story," I said. She smiled, a real smile, and asked to read the book. I handed her a printed copy, one Sam had ordered for me. "It's about not giving up," I told her. She nodded, and for the first time, I felt respected, not pitied. The other residents changed too. Mrs. Thompson asked for writing tips. Mr. Jenkins shared a poem he'd written. Willow Grove was no longer a place of waiting. It was a place of doing. My typewriter, once a source of whispers, became a symbol of possibility. The book club grew, spilling beyond our small group. Nurses joined, even the janitor, Mr. Ruiz, who shyly shared a story he'd written about his childhood in Mexico. I read Elisa's Climb aloud, chapter by chapter, the room quiet except for the rustle of pages and occasional gasps. When Eliza reached the summit, Ruth clapped, tears in her eyes. "You did it, Margaret," she said. "You made her real." The book wasn't just mine anymore, it was ours. Residents started their own projects. Ruth painted a mural, Mrs. Larson wrote poems. The typewriter, with its worn keys, was passed around, each clack a step toward something new. I realized I wasn't just writing a story, I was sparking a movement. Readers found Eliza's Climb online, and letters began arriving, handwritten, typed, emailed. A woman in Texas wrote that Eliza inspired her to take up hiking at 65. A teenager in New York said the book helped her understand her grandmother. Each letter was a thread, connecting me to a world I'd thought had forgotten me. Sam set up a blog, where I shared writing tips and snippets of Eliza's story. The comments poured in, calling me an inspiration, a reminder that age is no barrier. Ellen called, her voice choked with pride. "Mom, you're famous," she said. I laughed. "Not famous, just heard." She visited the next week, bringing my grandson, Liam, who asked me to sign his copy of the book. As I wrote, to Liam, "Keep climbing," I felt Robert's presence, his pride mingling with mine. Willow Grove transformed. The garden, once overgrown, bloomed with roses and sunflowers, tended by residents inspired by my book. Ruth's mural, a vibrant scene of mountains, adorned the common room. Mr. Jenkins published his poem in the local paper. My success had rippled, waking dreams long dormant. I taught writing workshops, my typewriter the centerpiece. Its clack a call to action. Sam, too, was changing. He applied to a music education program, inspired by my leap. "You showed me it's never too late," he said. I smiled, realizing we'd saved each other. Eliza's story had become a mirror, reflecting not just my strength but the strength of everyone around me. The library invited me to speak, a small event that felt monumental. I stood before a crowd, locals, readers, even a reporter, my hands steady despite the nerves. I told them about Eliza, about the whispers, about proving myself wrong. "Age doesn't stop you," I said. "Only you do." The applause was warm, like a hug, and Ellen's tears mirrored my own. Back at Willow Grove, I kept writing, starting a new book about a community that finds strength together. The typewriter, once a relic, was now a beacon. I wasn't just Margaret, the resident, I was Margaret, the writer, the dreamer, the woman who climbed her own mountain. At 81, I've learned that life isn't about the years you've lived but the stories you tell. My typewriter, with its stubborn keys and faded ribbons, taught me that we're never too old to dream, to create, to matter. Eliza's Climb wasn't just a book. It was a declaration that I'm still here, still writing, still climbing. If you're watching, feeling like the world has counted you out, pick up your typewriter, your passion, your voice, and write your story. The world is waiting. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If Margaret's story inspired you to chase your dreams, give it a thumbs up. Share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe. Drop a comment. What's your typewriter? What story are you ready to tell? Until next time, keep writing your legacy.